All right, I think we're just about ready to start, everybody. There are still seats at the front here and not so much at the front if there's people at the back who want to come in. So welcome, everybody, to the session on the Continuum from Publishers to Data Repositories and how we might be able to support a more seamless scholarship. My name's Liz Ferguson, I work for Wiley, and I'm also a member of the Board of Directors of the Dryad Data Repository, which you'll hear a little bit more about later on. Data is looming large in the minds of many publishers right now, and that's evidenced by the popularity of this session and also of the other data sessions that are taking place during SSP this year. And also, we know that from the presence of a good number of publishers at a community meeting yesterday that was co-hosted by Dryad and Dataverse at Harvard. There's a great deal for us to learn in this space, and before I introduce the speakers, I'm just going to talk about a few of the problems that I think we should be trying to resolve over the course of the next few years. So as publishers, we are very used to seeing increasing numbers of submissions and increasing numbers of papers as a consequence. And that's because there are larger bodies than ever of researchers out there, and they're producing ever larger quantities of data. There's 90% of research data has been generated in the past 2 years alone, and we're seeing roughly 30% annual increases in research data output. We heard yesterday from Jenny Larkin at NIH that there's now more than 100 million sequences in GenBank alone, so the volume of all of this is getting very considerable indeed. Funders, including the NIH, Wellcome and MRC, are requiring their grant recipients to have detailed data management plans, and quite often all those require of researchers at the end of a particular project is that they make their data available to other researchers on request. There isn't too much of a drive yet to make data openly available from that perspective. So where does all this data go? All of the data that's associated with the publications that we're putting out on an annual basis. Some of it goes into supporting information or supplementary material. Some of it goes into institutional repositories. Some of it goes into the thousands upon thousands of specific data repositories that exist out there. But by and large, most of it is retained on personal hard drives and locked away from general use. And one thing we do know for sure from a recent paper by Tim Vines and some of his colleagues that came out in Current Biology is that it's very, very difficult to find data several years after publication, and the picture gets worse and worse as time goes on. So how can publishers help in this kind of landscape? Well, first of all, we've got the basic functionality, perhaps too basic, very basic functionality of supporting information. We can move on from there to linking data and publications much more closely and enabling authors to get their material into the right repositories for them and associating ourselves with those efforts. And finally, we could take this right through to proper data publication with structured and machine-readable entities that provides a much richer environment in total. Well, this environment is changing so rapidly, it's very hard for us to work out how best we can support the authors and research communities that we're working with. And we need to establish which of these very diverse models and repositories out there are going to be best suited for our authors and their communities in the mid to longer term. So if we're able to successfully navigate this environment, I think we're going to be able to improve the discoverability of the content that authors are publishing with us. We can increase the visibility of it and drive the usage of it. And we can tell a story of research at a much richer level. So here to help us navigate this environment, we've got 5 speakers with really considerable expertise in this environment. They're each going to talk for about 10 minutes, and then we're looking for really lively discussions. So keep your questions and your discussion points for us. We will be coming to you at the end of all of these talks for that discussion. First up, we're going to hear from Chris Beamersdorfer from the American Astronomical Society, who's going to talk about the considerable experience they've had now for more than a decade of working together with data and publications. Then we'll hear from Susanna Sansoni from the University of Oxford, who's working with Nature Publishing Group on a much, much newer entity that launched just this week. Laurie Goodman is going to talk to us about a publishing platform that's combined and properly coalesced with an underlying database. Todd Vision, who's the founder and current board member of the Dryad Data Repository, is going to tell us about how Dryad supports publishing workflows and models. And Mercer Crosas from Harvard University is going to talk to us about Dataverse and the infrastructure provided there. So, with no further ado, I'll turn it over to Chris.